On the morning of October 21st, it's just after 9 a.m. at Pantglas Junior School. Kids aged 7 to 10 are settling into their classrooms. Some are singing hymns in assembly. Others are at their desks, ready for lessons. Up on the hill, Tip 7 is saturated from weeks of rain. The spring underneath has turned the waste into a thick black sludge. Hello everyone, and welcome to this special 30-minute deep dive into one of the most devastating tragedies in British history, the Aberfan Disaster. Before we begin, if you're someone who loves uncovering hidden stories and diving into history's untold chapters, please hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. It really helps us keep bringing you stories like this one, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Alright, let's get into it. Picture this, a misty morning in a small Welsh village. Kids bundled up in their school uniforms, laughing and chatting as they head to class. The air smells of coal dust, a familiar scent in a mining town. But in just a few moments, everything changes, lives are shattered, and a community is forever scarred. That's the story of Aberfan, a tragedy that struck on October 21st, 1966, and today we're not just looking back, we're diving into a brand new investigation that has come to light in 2025, revealing shocking details about what really happened and who's to blame. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a story of loss, resilience, and a fight for justice that's still alive today. So settle in, because we're going to unpack it all. Let's set the scene. Aberfan is a small mining village in South Wales, nestled near Merthyr Tydfil, about 20 miles north of Cardiff. In 1966, it's home to around 5,000 people, most of whom depend on the Merthyr Vale colliery for their livelihoods. Coal mining isn't just a job here, it's the heartbeat of the community. But above the village, on the steep slopes of Minied Merthyr, are 7 massive spoiled tips piles of waste from the mine, made of coal slurry, ash, and rock. These aren't small heaps. Tip 7, the one we're focusing on, stood 111 feet tall, holding over 1 million cubic meters of debris. That's enough to fill a football stadium several times over. And here's the kicker. It was built directly over a natural spring, which made the ground beneath it a ticking time bomb. South Wales is no stranger to rain on average. It gets about 60 inches a year, way more than most of the UK. In the weeks leading up to October 1966, the rain was relentless. The village had seen flooding before, at least 11 times between 1952 and 1965, and smaller landslides from the tips weren't uncommon. Locals had been worried for years. The village council sent letters to the National Coal Board, the government body running the mines, warning about the instability of the tips. Parents even told kids not to play too close to the hillside. But the NCB? They brushed it off, saying the tips were safe, no need to worry. Spoiler alert, they were very, very wrong. On the morning of October 21st, it's just after 9 a.m. Pantglas Junior School. Kids aged 7 to 10 are settling into their classrooms. Some are singing hymns in assembly. Others are at their desks, ready for lessons. Up on the hill, Tip 7 is saturated from weeks of rain. The spring underneath has turned the waste into a thick black sludge. At 9:15 a.m., a low rumble starts. Within seconds, it becomes a roar. Nearly 150,000 tons of slurry, imagine a wave of wet cement, crashes down the hillside at 40 miles per hour. It takes less than a minute to reach the village. The wave slams into Pantglas Junior School, bursting through walls and windows, burying classrooms under 30 feet of debris. Nearby houses are flattened. The sludge is so thick it traps people instantly, like quicksand. Teachers try to shield their students, but there's no time. The village is plunged into chaos screams, dust, and the stench of coal everywhere. Miners from the colliery, some still underground when they hear the news, race to the scene. Parents, neighbors, anyone with a shovel or bare hands starts digging. But the scale is overwhelming. By the time rescue efforts fully organize, it's clear the loss is catastrophic. Here's a question for you, our audience. Can you imagine being one of those parents? Hearing the news and running to the school, not knowing if your child is alive? What would go through your mind in that moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this story hits you. The numbers are staggering. The disaster killed 144 people, 116 children, most of them between 7 and 10 years old, and 28 adults, including 5 teachers. Only 5 children in the main classroom survived, pulled from the rubble by sheer luck. One of them, Jeff Edwards, was just 8 years old. He later recalled being trapped, unable to move, hearing his classmates' cries fade one by one. Another survivor, Gerald Kerwan, described the eerie silence after the initial chaos, broken only by the sound of rescuers above. The entire village was in shock. Funerals went on for weeks, with tiny coffins lining the hillside cemetery. The grief was so deep it reshaped Aberfan forever. The nation was stunned. This wasn't just a local tragedy. It hit the heart of Britain. Queen Elizabeth II visited 8 days later, meeting survivors and families. It was one of her most emotional public appearances. She later said Aberfan stayed with her more than any other event. A memorial fund was set up, and people from all over the world donated, raising £1.75 million, equivalent to about £40 million today, from nearly 88,000 contributions. But alongside the sorrow came fury. How could this happen? Why wasn't anyone listening to the warnings? Let us pause for another audience question. If you lived in a community where a company ignored safety concerns, what would you do to make your voice heard? Would you protest, write letters, or something else? Share your ideas in the comments. Let's get a conversation going. The government acted fast, launching a public inquiry led by Lord Justice Edmund Davies. The tribunal sat for 76 days, hearing from over 130 witnesses. Their 1967 report didn't hold back. It called the disaster a result of ignorance, ineptitude, and arrogance by the National Coal Board. The report detailed how the NCB knew about the spraying under Tip 7 but did nothing. They ignored engineering advice, skipped proper inspections, and even falsified safety reports to cut costs. 9 NCB employees were named as responsible, but here's the part that stings. Not one was fired, fined, or prosecuted. The chairman, Lord Robbins, who infamously delayed visiting Aberfan to attend the ceremony, later got a cushy promotion. Can you believe that? Then there's the Memorial Fund scandal. The government forced the village to pay £150,000, about 10% of the fund, to remove the remaining tips, saying it was for public safety. The community was outraged. They'd already lost everything, and now they had to foot the bill? It took until 1997 for that money to be repaid, and only in 2007 did the Welsh government add extra compensation for the trauma. Studies show the long-term impact. At least half of Aberfan survivors have battled PTSD, and the village still sees higher rates of mental health issues and economic struggles. The disaster didn't just take lives, it stole futures. Now, let us talk about the bombshell that has brought Aberfan back into the spotlight in 2025. A new investigation, led by the British Geological Survey and a team of historians, has uncovered declassified NCB documents and new survivor testimonies. Using cutting-edge tech, think AI modeling, satellite imagery, and geological scans, they've examined the site and found evidence that's rewriting the story. It turns out the instability of Tip 7 wasn't just about rain or the spring. There were hidden geological faults under the site, known to the NCB as early as 1958, but they buried the reports to avoid costly relocations. One memo even warned that a slide could wipe out the village, yet it was ignored. This investigation goes further, suggesting systemic cover-ups. During the 1960s, Britain's coal industry was a national priority, and the government was under pressure to keep it running smoothly. The new findings hint at collusion between NCB officials and government figures to downplay risks, prioritizing profits over lives. Survivors like Jeff Edwards, now in his late 60s, have spoken out, saying, "We thought we had the truth, but this shows it was deeper a betrayal." The investigation is calling for a formal government apology in reparations for descendants, arguing the original inquiry didn't go far enough. Here is another question for you. Do you think it's ever too late to seek justice for something like this? Should the government and companies today be held accountable for mistakes made 60 years ago? And what about modern industries? Could this happen again with, say, fracking or other projects? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's take a moment to reflect on Aberfan today. The school site is now a memorial garden with arches and flowers marking where classrooms once stood. The cemetery, with its rows of white headstones, is a quiet reminder of the loss. The community has rebuilt, but the pain lingers. Every October, villagers gather to remember, and the story is passed down to new generations. This new investigation has given them hope not just for answers, but for recognition that their suffering mattered. Before we close, one final audience question. If you could create a memorial for Aberfan, what would it look like? A statue, a museum, or something else? Share your ideas below. I'm really curious to see what you come up with. As we wrap up, the Aberfan disaster reminds us of the human cost of negligence and the power of a community to endure. It's a call to demand accountability, to listen when people raise alarms, and to never let profit outweigh safety. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more deep dives into history's biggest moments. hit that notification bell, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, take care.